This is Ghana, and it is one of the most important countries in the world, both historically and culturally.
When the Europeans came here, that's where they put the enslaved African women. Let's check the biggest one.
Have you ever wondered why Ghana is known as the epic center of slave forts in Africa? Why is this small country along the West African coast home to the most significant number of these historical sites? Well, let us explore together. Ghana, or the Gold Coast as it was once called, wasn't just a place where European traders stopped by. It became the headquarters for their activities. And not just any activities. This was the heart of the transatlantic slave trade. From the 15th to the 19th century, Ghana's coastline became home to over 40 forts and castles built by the Portuguese, Dutch, British, and others. This concentration is unmatched anywhere else in Africa. So why Ghana? It starts with its location. Ghana sits along the Gulf of Guinea, a sweet spot for maritime trade back in the day. It was perfect for European ships to dock, load, and set sail to the Americas. These forts acted like giant warehouses for enslaved Africans, holding thousands in horrifying conditions before they were shipped across the Atlantic. Sadly, Ghana became a key link in the trade routes between Africa, Europe, and the Americas. Also, the country was blessed with an abundance of natural harbors, making it the perfect location for building forts and castles to facilitate trade. But what eventually seemed as a geographical advantage turned into a dark curse. These harbors became gateways for the transatlantic slave trade, where countless lives were uprooted and sold into unimaginable suffering. Elmina Castle, built in 1482 by the Portuguese, was the very first European structure in sub-Saharan Africa. It is actually older than most countries in the world today. Cape Coast Castle, on the other hand, became the British stronghold. Both of these castles were infamous for their doors of no return, the last exit enslaved Africans passed through before being forced onto ships. I'm right here at the Elmina Castle with Martin Coffie, who is going to show us around and tell us a lot about the history surrounding this castle. Okay, so why should a tourist or a visitor come here? You know, what is so special about this particular castle, this slave castle?
We have this Edinkra symbol, Sankofa, a bird looking back, basically meaning going back to your roots. As you grow, you should know your history. You go into the past, you learn, and it surges you forward.
Okay.
And the thing is, all these slave trades in here, everything started from this castle. But this is the oldest and the largest slave castle in the whole of West Africa. Oh. Everything started here before the other ones were built. So it is very important it comes straight here because everything started from this castle. This is St. George's Castle, with the popular name Elmina Castle. In the year 1482, the Portuguese built it. But the thing is, as far back as 1471, the Portuguese started coming down here. When they came, they were trading with our local people, and that was the barter trade, exchanging goods for goods. The Portuguese here were giving our locals guns, gunpowder, tobacco, and other items, and our locals will exchange them with gold ivories. The gold was so much, and this gave the Portuguese a mindset that the whole land here is full of gold. So they named the area Elmina. Others call it Damina, meaning the gold mine. But this was mispronounced or corrupted to be Elmina, and that has come to stay. Edina is another name for the town, but that is also a Portuguese word. The actual word is aldeia, and that means village in Portuguese language. That was also corrupted to be Edina. However, this should not tell us that Elmina never had a name at all before the arrival of the Europeans. Elmina's traditional name is Anomansa. It's a Ghanaian name. That means Inswa Enoma Onsa, inexhaustible water. The more you drink, more is coming up. In the course of the barter trade, there was that need for the Portuguese to have a permanent structure to keep their goods. So their leader, that time by name Captain Don Diego de Azambuja, he contacted our king Nana Kwamina Ansa I, and he gave them that permission to build this castle. In those years, the rooms at the ground floor were storerooms or warehouses. They kept their incoming goods like the clothes, the mirrors, the schnapps, and the outgoing ones like the gold and ivories. However, around the year 1503, that was in the early 16th century, when the slave trade started, all those warehouses downstairs were now converted to be slave dungeons. That's where they put the enslaved Africans. At a point in time, there were 1,000 captives here, 600 men, 400 women every 3 months. The Europeans captured some on their own, and that was forced capture. For example, you may send your daughter to buy you something on the street. By the time you realize somebody has stolen your daughter and you have no idea of where she was. Now, some of the Europeans also had a link or collaboration with some of the Africans. These guys were slave raiders. Now, this is what they do. Sometimes they can get to some village somewhere and set the whole village on fire. With guns and other dangerous weapons, they hide in the bush. So while people are running for their lives, they capture them, especially women and children. But the largest way they had a lot of them in here was through the effects of inter-tribal wars. Right now in Ghana, there are many ethnic groups, but no matter our differences, we all see ourselves as one people. But back then, that was not so, because normally there were wars among these tribes. So for example, if tribe A defeats tribe B, most of the tribe B people were captured. Most of these people who were brought here were prisoners or victims of wars. Now, in the year 1637, the Dutch fought the Portuguese in this castle, defeated them, and they took over the whole place. And in the year 1872, the Dutch transferred the castle to the British.
What was life like for the average enslaved person here? Can you briefly tell me, what life was like for that person who was unfortunate to have been captured?
It's a great question. So from what I said at the dungeons, briefly it is about you are in a state of hopelessness. Yeah, that's it. Hopelessness. You just don't know what your life is all about, because you see your fellow brother or sister in pain, dying in your own face, and you don't know your fate. It's a state of hopelessness. That is what I will say. Slave courtyard. Initially, when the Europeans came here, they were trading with our local people. Back then, these rooms at the ground floor were storerooms or warehouses. They kept their incoming goods like the clothes, mirrors, schnapps, and other items. But when the slave trade started, this is where they put the enslaved African women. Let's check the biggest one. This female dungeon took the largest number of enslaved African women. Almost 150 female captives were lying on this bare floor just like that. There were 2 receptacles or containers here. One was put at the corner there, another kept at the other far end. This is what happens if you want to go to toilets. You get up and you visit. You want to vomit or urinate, you use those containers over there. But the challenge was, when we look at the health troubles, some of them were very weak that they could not get to use those containers to ease themselves. So right now, the weak ones, they were practically going to toilet on the floor, urinate, vomit on the floor. When they have their menses, everything scattered, and they were still sleeping inside. In fact, we can never imagine at all that kind of heat and the bad smell that was coming from the whole slave dungeons. Let's check this area. Apart from this space over here, I keep moving here. There was a gate at this entrance. We've got this space also. Apart from here and the other side I showed you, that fresh air came for them to breathe in. We look at this area too. This area was another source of air for them to breathe in. But the challenge was, this hole was connected to this room. That is a magazine. They kept guns and gunpowder in here. So whenever there was a leakage, all the gunpowder, toxic fumes will rush in here and pollute the air. Already, they were sleeping in their toilets, and the gunpowder fumes coming in wasn't the matter. Many died. They pick your body up and dump you into the sea. Now, the number of months a captive will spend here, usually this depends on the availability of a ship to take that captive away. Usually they were here for 3 months. Biggest female dungeon in this castle. Some of these wreaths we have here were brought in by some visitors to show respect or pay homage to our ancestors.
One of the wreaths caught my attention, and this wreath is actually coming from a Portuguese citizen, or from a Portuguese who sent it, who placed this the wreath here. Basically, what the person is doing is, or saying, is asking for forgiveness. The person is asking that the people or the Africans forgive her for, the sins of her ancestors. So simply put, she's asking for forgiveness, or they are asking for forgiveness. And she's like, I don't know if I can really read what she's written on the wreath. She said, and I quote, "I am a Portuguese woman who wants to ask forgiveness in the name of my ancestors to all African people who suffered the pain of slavery." And the rest, I can't read it. But essentially, all in all, what she's trying to do is ask for forgiveness on behalf of her people, or on behalf of her ancestors. I wanted to ask Martin, who is our tour guide, if this is a common thing, that he deals with, where you have white people or Europeans who come and visit this place asking for forgiveness on behalf of their ancestors.
Sometimes Within the tour, somebody can approach you and just say that he or she feels so bad about what his predecessors or ancestors did to the African people. Some feel very bad about that. Usually the governor will stay up here and give a command. They open all the gates for all the female captives to come and line up here. So while they were here and he being up there will now look through and choose the woman wanted to sleep with. They now fetch water from here, from this reservoir. Have a look. They fetch water from here and clean the woman, because for the number of months they were inside, you can't get the chance to brush your own teeth or take a bath. Some of the women chosen were menstruating, but still that was governor's choice. They clean you up and they march you to the governor's bedroom. Now we are going to see where the women pass to the bedroom. We'll be back to continue. Now this is the private access to the governor's bedroom. All the female captives who were chosen, this is where they passed. And there is a secret door upstairs. That is a trap door. They pull it up. The woman walks through, enters bedroom, and they close it. As we progress with the tour, we will see that secret door. After sleeping with them, they bring them back into the dungeon still as captives. And in fact, some got pregnant. Looking at the health situation in the dungeons, they could not reside there. They send them outside the castle to give birth. And when they give birth and the child is 4 years, they bring the kids back here and educate them. In fact, in Ghana here, most of our formal education started from the castle schools before they were moved outside. And apart from this, in Africa here in general, sometimes you will see some of our brothers and sisters. If you look at the skin color, is very light. That's a light color skin. And apart from that, there are some European names on our coastland. You may hear a name like Heidi Cooper, Engman, Waits, De Bolt, De Heer, Velas, Viala, Vroom, Van Dyke, Van der Poy, Da Costa, Da Silva. We've got Wilberforce, Peterson, Hutchison, Johnson, Blankson, Robertson, Harrison, Williamson, and in fact all the other saints. And just a few months ago, I heard of another name, Appleton, and I learned that's in Jamaica. But the one thing was, it was not all the female captives who were selected out there who went to the bedroom. Some of them, no matter what you do, she would never step up here. They resisted and they were punished. Let's see what happened to them. What we have here is a cannonball. Back then, 8 of these balls were here. They were chains here fixed to their feet. When you are here, no water to drink, no food to eat. Rain or shine, day or night, they were here in chains. And this treatment was meted out to them or given to them so that the other women inside, as they see this, they become afraid never to disobey the governor's command. This ball here weighs 25 kilograms. He cannot run away. And just imagine the daytime, the scorching sun, and at night the mosquito bites. That was very serious. Now let's see what happened in this dungeon. We are still at the female dungeons. We observe these clothes and chains down here. This is what happened. On July 2015, an exhibition was held in this castle with the title, The Return of the Slaves. About 60 people from Ghana, Nigeria, UK, US, they came to sleep here for 12 hours. From 6 in the evening to the following morning, they were here. These are these clothes to cover their waist and the chains for their arms and feet. People came from many countries to observe it. 12 hours in the dungeon, the return of the slaves. But please, these items are not original, just for the exhibition. Dame cell for the enslaved African men fighting for their freedom. In the dungeons, anybody brought here died. Here they died because of heat, no water, no food. By 3 days, a week, you are gone. They pick your body up and dump you into the sea.
So how many Africans died in this castle?
Died?
Yeah.
So, what I will say is, as I said, almost every 3 months, 1,000 captives pass through. And this thing happened for over 400 years. We are looking at about 1.6 million enslaved Africans going through the castle. In terms of that, I may not be able to give you the exact figure, but a lot died.
At one point, the Gold Coast was like a real estate market for European powers. The Portuguese started it, the Dutch took over, then came the British, Swedes, and Danes, all building and fighting over these forts. Why? Because Ghana wasn't just rich in gold, it was rich in human resources that fueled the global slave trade. Fast forward to today, Ghana is doing an incredible job preserving this history. These forts aren't just ruins, they are UNESCO World Heritage Sites. They've become pilgrimage sites for people of African descent from all over the world. The year of return in 2019 brought thousands to Ghana, reconnecting them with the ancestry and highlighting the castle's role in the African diaspora story. As someone who has explored these castles firsthand, I truly believe that visiting Ghana's slave forts and castles is a must for anyone traveling to Ghana or Africa. To me, these historic sites are far more than just buildings. They remind me of a very dark history that shaped the world as we know it today. Honestly, standing in those dungeons in places like Cape Coast Castle or Elmina Castle, where people were packed like cargo, you can feel the weight of history. But then again, it's also a story of resilience. All in all, it's a deeply emotional, eye-opening experience. You will step into the very rooms where enslaved Africans were held and feel their terrifying stories. I personally think it isn't just about learning history, it is about connecting with it and feeling its impact. And last but not least, it is about honoring the lives of those who came before us. For me, every time I step into one of these castles, I can't help but think about the sheer strength of the people who endured so much pain and still found ways to create progress. It is a really humbling experience. These sites tell stories which I hope will never ever be forgotten. They are like living lessons, showing us where we've been so we can keep pushing for a better future. Trust me, they leave you thinking long after you've walked out. So when you do visit Ghana or Africa, don't just stick to the beaches or markets. Take some time to visit these castles. Trust me, it is a visit you will never forget. I will conclude this video by saying that if you want to understand the African diaspora story better, there is no place like Ghana to start. If you have visited these sites before, drop a comment below about your experience. And if you haven't visited yet, I hope this video inspires you to explore and reflect.